Hey, and welcome to Guerrilla Discipleship. I'm Tim Parker, your host, and we are continuing our series, Holy Interruptions, How God Uses Unexpected Moments to Open Doors for Disciple Making. We always enjoy having special guests on Guerrilla Discipleship because we want to help you be a disciple maker where you live, learn, work, and play. We want to help you do it guerrilla style, whether it's undercover, but still very direct and hopefully effective. And today I have my friend Lucas. Lucas, would you mind introducing yourself and telling our friends who you are and a little bit about your family?
Yeah, Tim, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Name's Lucas Wood. I'm pastor of Layhill Community Church here in Silver Spring, right on the corner of Bonifant and Layhill Road, new to the area. We're a Free Methodist congregation. We're evangelical, conservative, with a heart for justice, biblical justice, I would say.
Yeah. Can you tell us about yourself and your family a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm married. I have a little girl who's 3 and then another little girl on the way. Actually,
it's exciting.
An anatomy scan tomorrow. So we're excited about that. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I asked Lucas to come because he has at least one, maybe two if we have time, stories about holy interruptions and how God used him to have disciple-making conversations. So I don't know if you just want to jump in, give us a little bit of background, but the floor is yours. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. So a little bit of background. So moved to the area just about a year ago to Layhill Community, and we had this problem with people parking in our parking lot and dumping cars there that had been wrecked. And so there was a car that had been there for like maybe a year or
wow.
so. Yeah. And apparently in Maryland, legally, the police will not remove a vehicle if it's on private property. So I had to figure something out. So, but because
you could just push it to the public
property,
property,
push it to the road. Yeah, I thought that'd be a little unethical. But I ended up calling the non-emergency line, and they said, you know what, we'll send an officer out there since it's been so long. The car's totaled. You definitely couldn't drive this vehicle. We'll send an officer out there. So the officer comes out and he talks with me, and he pretty much just tells me, hey, I can't do anything about this. You're going to have to hire a private tow truck company to come and pull these cars out. I'm like, I don't have
How many were there by then?
Budget. There's 2 there.
Okay.
By then. Yeah, side by side. Right as soon as anyone new drives into the church lot, that's what you see. And
that's so great to be known for.
Yeah. They're
Come
right
to your
there.
church and have your car wrecked. Yeah.
Have your car wrecked and have your heart wrecked.
Yeah, maybe it's a metaphor.
Yeah,
but still not good.
It did not make it into a sermon illustration. He said pretty much you're gonna have to just hire a private tow truck driver, and I don't have the budget for that. So what are we gonna do? So anyhow, he gets done with his call, and we had just catching up, and he tells me, I asked him for his name, and he said his name was Muhammad. And so he's about to get in his car, and I said, actually, do you mind if I ask you a question? And he said, sure, yeah. And he said, do you have a faith background, Muhammad, like from that name? So I grew up 10 years in the Middle East, overseas, so I have a little bit of experience, especially with Muslims. And obviously, Muhammad is a Muslim name.
You can't be more Muslim than Muhammad.
So I asked him, I said, Muhammad, do you have a faith background? And I kind of expected him to say, yeah, I'm Muslim, and whatever. But he said, well, obviously, my family is Muslim, but said, the more I think about it, the more I think maybe there's an answer in Jesus Christ.
And you said, all right, have a good day, and close the door and let him go.
I said, you have other and more important things to get off to. Thanks for your time. That started a really, really cool conversation. And I really just, one of the principles I kind of live by is just be curious. So I love to ask questions. I love to ask him, hey, okay, you're saying this. Where did this come from? Your name is Muhammad. He told me his family is Muslim back home. Where did this come from? And so he just started telling me about how he wasn't finding the right things in Islam. He wasn't finding life in it. And he has I think a brother-in-law that had introduced him to The Chosen. And I'm not like a 100% endorser of The Chosen, but if it brings people to the Lord, then I'm all for it. So, so he said he'd been watching The Chosen a little bit and trying to understand it. And so we just talked through, I really focused in on Jesus. Who is Jesus? And that's one thing I like to do also when I'm sharing the gospel with people is there's so much about I mean, you can share the gospel very simply, but there's so much to the gospel message. So I always try and focus in on who Jesus is.
That's good. Yeah.
And so I just started telling about who Jesus is, who Jesus says he is. There's obviously a difference in Islam and Christianity about who they say Jesus is and what Jesus did. And so it's really
Jesus is just a prophet.
just a prophet. Yeah.
And a judge.
So,
right?
Yeah, of some kind.
Yeah.
I actually know less about that than you would think, or used to know more about that.
Yeah.
But there's these kind of key differences you can hit on about Jesus actually being the Son of God, Jesus being God himself, Jesus rising from the dead. Like all these different things you can hit on who Jesus is. And so we just talked through who Jesus is, and this is the cool parts. We're talking about holy interruptions, especially. So one interrupted his day, my day as well. But he gets a phone call because he's still got his body cam on, and his like superior officer called him and was like, "Hey, what is taking so long? You went to see a wrecked vehicle, like this is in a parking lot. What's taking so long?" And he just said like, "Oh, yeah, we just like had more to talk about than I thought," and put the phone down and we kept talking.
Wow.
And then he turned off his body cam and sounds like, are you whatever? So I said, "Do you have to go?" And he said, no. He got in his car, drove around and parked his car and got back out and kept talking to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really cool. He was obviously very interested. And so I just kept asking him questions.
What a divine appointment.
No kidding. Yeah. It could have been any cop that got sent on that because I called the non-emergency line and they just sent whoever was available.
Yeah, they probably 9 times out of 10 wouldn't send anyone because they're like,
yeah,
we can't do anything anyways.
They can't do anything.
We're just going here to make this guy smile and be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't submit a complaint.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool. So obviously love to have an ending to this story where like, we were praying in the parking lot and he came to faith. That didn't happen. We definitely prayed.
There was a lot of curiosity there.
A lot of curiosity, seeds planted, and obviously if he has a brother-in-law that knows the Lord, then it seems like there might be continued conversation. So I hope to rejoice, with the harvester in heaven.
Yeah.
The two of us can rejoice together with Muhammad, or the three of us, I guess I mean to say. So pray for them at the end. That's one thing I always do is ask people if I can pray for them. And then anything specific to their life. Hey, how else can I pray for you other than, this kind of conversation we're having? So prayed for them. I bet we talked for 15 minutes or more. So it was great.
That's awesome. There's a couple things I want to point out.
Yeah.
There's a good story. So Lucas was interrupted. So a lot of times we like, oh my goodness, someone parked their car in my lawn, or oh my goodness, I can't believe I have to deal with this issue that someone else's problem that is now my problem. We get frustrated, irritated. So you were willing to be interrupted probably in the middle of, I'm not saying, grumbling or maybe having to do this. And then the cop who came, you was willing to be interrupted, and you were willing to interrupt whatever you had to do next. Like, I already have this guy here, I might as well do something. So there's that willingness for both parties to be interrupted. And God likes to work, I think, in the interruptions for divine appointments. I think the curiosity is good. I like that you said, like, hey, be curious. A lot of times we're maybe thinking like, that's a weird name, or that's an interesting name, or and we just don't say anything. And you were willing to say it, especially because it was someone who was a different religion. I know we're very sensitive in this area of not offending people, and we shouldn't intentionally offend people, but it's okay to say, hey, what's your faith background when someone has a unique name? For instance, I have go to my dentist. I have a story. I won't go into it, but her name is Ruhama, and I was like Lo Ruhama. She's like, yeah, not with the Lo, with the Ruhama. For those of you who don't know, that's the book of, oh my goodness, I lost my head. Hosea. Well, Hosea and Gomer have a baby. Gomer's a prostitute. Anyways, has a baby named Ruhama. Lower Home. Anyways, so like I was like, oh, that's you hear these names and like, wow, that's weird. So you were curious enough to like ask, like, what's that name? Like, what's behind it? And then God had obviously planted that. So that's awesome. And then you were willing to focus on Jesus, because I think we can talk about church. We can talk about what Christians believe or do, which is a very dangerous thing. Yeah. People who call themselves Christians.
I know. What kind of Christians are you talking about? Yeah.
Yikes. So focusing on Jesus was awesome. And then being willing to pray. I think sometimes we were like, well, I'll pray with you, or I'll ask a question, but I won't want to talk about Jesus. But obviously God had brought that man there for whatever reason, and he would be willing to park his car, willing to have a deeper conversation. So the scripture that comes to me with this is Paul planted, Apollos watered, but God made it grow.
Yeah.
And so brother-in-law was doing something over here. You were doing something over here. And who knows if it's a week later, a month later, a decade later, something's brewing or stirring in Muhammad. So that's exciting that I think, you were just part of it and willing to be obedient in the midst of it all. And so I just want to encourage all of you, well, I get to a second story soon. Encourage all of you, to just follow that curiosity. And if God's like, hey, ask that person a question, or hey, maybe it's going to take an extra 30 minutes to get back to work. You're doing a task you don't want to do, to just be willing to be interrupted and, share Jesus with people. So story number 2, I want to hear this one too, because I think people would appreciate this.
And it connects really well, kind of the same things you just pointed out, are kind of all the same things.
Oh, that's
the
awesome.
Second time. But before I go there, you said something really important about talking about Jesus, not just talking about church. I've been, as a pastor myself, my first instinct, my first fleshly instinct really is to say, hey, come to
Layhill church,
Community Church, hey, come to Layhill, but it's like that's not. There's merit in that. That can be a really great starting point if you've never shared your faith before with anybody, and you want to start by saying, hey, I go to this church, I go to Oakdale, it's a great church, I love the associate pastor there.
That's debatable.
Come to Oakdale Church with me. That's a great place to start, but to get from that point to let me share Jesus Christ with you.
It's like good versus greater.
Yeah, and that's also a kingdom mindset where this is Oakdale mindset, this is Layhill Community Church mindset. We want to have a kingdom mindset. So
Muhammad might not even live anywhere in the county.
Yeah, he could have been far off, and you invite him to church, and then you kind of lose that opportunity.
Or he comes in like, oh, hey, these Christians are weird. I like this Jesus guy, but I'm not sure these free Methodists I can hang with.
Yeah, this pastor's crazy. But the second story is kind of the same thing. So I was going to a pizza place, in Spencerville area, Spencerville, Burtonsville, if I know my geography of the area yet. So I was going to pick up a pizza, something I do pretty regularly. So I went in, and I noticed that the guy at the cash register was wearing a cross necklace and was hanging outside of his shirt. And this whole thing, be curious, right? So people who wear wristbands that have scripture on them, or sometimes I talked to a woman who had a lanyard that said, I love Jesus, or, just anything that kind of gives me an in, I always try and ask about it. And so he was wearing this cross necklace, and I said, hey, I really like that necklace. And he just said, oh, yeah, so-and-so gave it to me. And I said, I actually forget exactly what I said. I may have said, do you have a faith background? Because I like to ask that question as well. And he said something like, well, I believe in God, but I don't follow Jesus. And it was this kind of dichotomy of...
And I'm willing to wear a cross.
And I'm willing to wear a cross necklace, yeah. So I believe in God, but I don't necessarily follow Jesus. And so we just were able to have this really beautiful conversation. There was no one else in the store. It was kind of later. And we probably talked for 15, 20 minutes just about who Jesus is and why it's not enough to say I believe in God, where Scripture says, even the demons believe there's one God and they shudder. Good for you.
Yeah, intellectual consent, great.
Yeah. And so it's like there was this huge difference that he didn't understand between what does it mean to believe in God and really follow Jesus. Yeah. And so we kind of just fleshed that out. And it was beautiful. He ended up, I don't, you always hate to say he responded or didn't respond. It responded in the sense that as I walked away, he actually got his phone number, and I had some further contact with him. And he texted me a couple days later, and he said, "Hey, thanks so much for our talk. I think God put you in my path for a reason."
There we go.
It was really great. It was really cool. But
sometimes you're there for a reason or a season. So you were just there for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and just for that short little bit. So it was really cool, and prayed with him, of course. And so just being curious and noticing things. Yeah. Kind of being prepared for every opportunity. Not every opportunity is going to scream at you. Sometimes you have to draw it out. Yeah. And so I think it was...
I love that. Two things I picked up here. I love the stories and extrapolating it. One is... I love how you integrate things into your life. It's like, I'm already ordering pizza and just taking an extra 15 minutes. It's not like you're saying, I'm going to have this intention to knock on every single neighbor's door and convert them and baptize them in their bathtub within a week. Like, that would be, an interesting take, but you're like, I want to just integrate it. Like, I have work to do and someone shows up and I have a question and then work kind of gets derailed, but it's a holy interruption. It's not just a distraction. Or I have pizza to pick up for my family or friends. And yes, I'm 15 minutes late. The pizza was a little colder maybe than it should have been, but it was that 15 minutes could have helped, someone for eternity. So I like that you integrate it. Some people think that disciple making has to be in addition to, we keep trying to tell people at Oakdale and then just Guerrilla Discipleship, it's integrate. It's not do more. It's actually do less, but be more intentional with the less you're doing. Anyways, so I love that. And I also love that you didn't automatically just assume, oh, this guy knows Jesus. He has a cross. I'm going to get out of here. Or he was raised some sort of denomination where at least he's a nominal believer. Like, you still ask that question. There's tons of times I know where I've like seen someone wear like a WWJD bracelet back in the day or a cross, and I'm like, well, I could start a conversation, but they're probably not
They're
lost.
probably set.
Yeah, they're probably good, which is like not necessarily all the case. Now, you don't want to say that everyone who is wearing a cross isn't saved, but it also isn't. Like, there's like that weird, but I love that you were like confident enough to be like, hey, well, I got extra time where I'm curious enough to ask this question, and if he says he's a believer, great. If he doesn't, give him a high five. If not, then you have an opportunity. So like, you weren't afraid to ask someone who was Muslim from a Muslim background, hey, what's your name mean? And you weren't also afraid to present something to someone that could have been presumed as Christian. So I like that kind of like
that is a cool
like
contrast.
spectrum, because I think some of us would be more willing to go to the cross person. Some of us be more willing to go to the lost person, and I think. It doesn't matter if there's the cross or the lost. We're still going to both. That's your pastor pun for the day.
It doesn't matter the cross or the lost, man. That'll preach right there. Expect that coming Sunday.
Yeah. Not this Sunday. No.
Yeah.
Anyways, you have anything you want to add before we sign out?
Oh, man. No, I don't
You're
think
good?
so. Yeah, I would just say be curious. Be curious, and if you don't have a question to ask, do you have a faith background is a really good place to start. It's very non-offensive because it's not... You're not pushing, even saying, do you know Jesus Christ? You're asking them, do they have a faith background? And it can be a really disarming question. I think questions are disarming. Statements are arming in the sense they build up walls, but questions are very questions with genuine curiosity. I think that's something really important. Talking about scripture comes to mind. This is why I think Jesus... when John the Baptist's disciples come and ask him about fasting, he actually gives them a real answer, and he teaches them about the kingdom, because I believe they come with genuine curiosity, because why do we and the Pharisees fast? Like, they're not in the same camp as the Pharisees. Why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but you and your disciples don't? And I read this genuine curiosity in it, rather than when the Pharisees are trying to ask a question to
ask another question back.
Jesus. And he asks another question back. Now, Jesus kind of asks a question back to John the Baptist's disciples, but he really actually gives them a good answer. And so I think it's this principle of genuine curiosity goes a really long way.
Yeah. We talk about all the time, just a quick reminder, going from casual conversations to meaningful, and then meaningful to spiritual, and spiritual to discovery. Like, do you want to discover who Jesus is? And so, do you have a faith background is a great transition from a meaningful or from a casual right to a spiritual. Wow. So that's a great one. Some of us are okay going casual to meaningful, but sometimes that meaningful to the spiritual, or even casual, jumping right down to the spiritual, is a hard transition. But sometimes names like Muhammad or crosses on our necklaces on our jewelry, and make that transition a little bit easier, because they're literally wearing their faith, whether it's on their name tag or their shirt. So, cool. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always post them in the comments below. You can always email me at tparker@oakdale.church. We can't wait to see you next week, and we want to encourage you to just go and make disciples, whether they're wearing a cross or they're the lost. All right. Take care. Bye.